What is going on, everybody? It is your boy E. I'm here with a little sports minute for you, man. We're going to talk a little NBA tonight, kind of get everybody caught up on what's going on in the league, getting ready for the playoffs. So, the other night, the play in games actually kicked off. The Heat lost to the Hawks. So, the Hawks actually wound up winning the 7th seed. The Heat actually play the Bulls on Friday night for the right to play the Bucks. Um, Tough matchup there for either one of those squads. Um, and then out west, the T Wolves and Oklahoma City will actually play. The winner of that game will actually advance on to play the Nuggets. And then the Lakers actually advanced the other night with a win over the T Wolves. And they get the 2 seed in the Grizzlies. So, with that being said, we'll kind of go over the playoff scenarios here in just a second. But we kind of want to get into the play in tournament, if you would. First and foremost, I think it's kind of a joke that the commissioner would actually come out and say to you guys, hey, everything that happens in the play in doesn't mean anything in regards to statistics. I think that's bullshit, to be perfectly honest with you. If they're playing in a game that you actually are making them play in, why wouldn't it be something that is actually in and included with all of the playoff stuff? Um, when it comes to stuff like that, though, man, like I mean, I guess I get it, but at the same time and in the same breath, it's like, man, are you serious, man? Like, this is what you're going to do to the teams that are playing in essentially in a tournament that you created. So with that being said, man, I don't like that at all. You get a guy that goes completely and totally off in a game, and none of the statistics count. I don't think I don't think that's right. To be perfectly honest with you. So without further ado, we're going to kind of jump into what happened in the play-in games the other night. The Hawks actually defeated the Heat 116-105. The Hawks actually had 7 dudes, man, that were in double figures, man. I don't care what team you are. If you got 7 guys in double figures, the chances are you are probably going to wind up coming out victorious on that night. Um, the Hawks just watching it, the Hawks just wanted it more. I mean, there wasn't anything as far as a talent thing was concerned. It's just, in my opinion, I think that the Hawks actually went out there with something to prove. They basically said, okay, playing game, big deal. It's playoffs. You know what I'm saying? We've been here before. We've been in the conference finals within the last 4 or 5 years. So Trey Young was his typical self, man. He wound up leading the whole thing as far as scoring was concerned for the Hawks. He had 25. He had 8 assists. He actually had 7 boards as well. But he played like playoff Trey. He's a tough matchup for the Heat. I don't think that they have anybody on their team that can really stay with him from a standpoint. But the pace that the actual Hawks that they played with the other night, man, it was interesting to see because they pushed the basketball up and down the court, man. Like Devontae Murray, I know that him and Trey haven't really necessarily seen eye to eye this year as far as the basketball team and everything is concerned. But I when both of those dudes are playing, man, I mean it's something to see, man. So for me though, man, probably the most impressive thing about the night was the Miami Heat are a smaller squad. They don't have the bigs that most of the teams in the East actually have this year. When you talk about Giannis, Time Lord, if he's playing with the Celtics, and then of course my MVP, Joel Embiid. You don't have the bigs that can match up with the other bigs that are in the East. They've played well all year, and Bam is a monster. You know what I'm saying? Got to find a way to get him the ball more. I understand that the game is played on the perimeter, but at the same time and in the same breath, if you want to have your big man involved in the game, you got to feed him the rock. But Clint Capella the other night, man, he had 21 rebounds. But probably the most impressive part about that entire thing was that 13 of them were defensive. You got a guy that's crashing the boards like that, and he's getting 13 defensive rebounds. That's second shots that aren't happening for your squad. You know what I'm saying? So keeping him off the boards was something that they just couldn't do. The Heat, believe it or not, man, they had 3 guys, man, that went over 20. So Lowry off the bench actually had 33. Hero dropped 26, and Jimmy had 21 and 9 assists. Bam only had 12 points and 9 rebounds. That's not going to, for that specific team, in order for them to be successful, Bam is going to have to be a guy that is in the mid to high 20s, 30 points per game. Um, when they made their playoff run a few years ago and made it to the finals during the bubble season, um, Bam and Hero were just the yin and yang, if you would, to the alpha that Jimmy Butler is. When you have a guy though that, and Capella's not that much bigger than Bam, you know what I'm saying? I think that Bam's probably more physical than he is, but in the same time, you have to hit the boards. And if you don't hit the boards, then you wind up having a guy that winds up going for 21 rebounds. So with that being said, the Hawks wind up getting the Celtics in the next round. Um, Don't like that for them at all. The Celtics have been one of the best teams in the entire league for the entirety of the year. Um, Kind of dipped there at the end, and Time Lord not being in there, and them resting guys and stuff like that. The Bucks kind of went on that run, and when the Bucks went on that run and kind of elevated past the Celtics and everything like that, they started getting guys a little bit more rest and things like that. So um, the other matchups in the East, you got the 76ers and the Nets. And then, not just because I am a Knicks fan, but the Cavs and the Knicks is probably the most interesting series coming out of the East with everything that happened over the summer with Donovan Mitchell. Um, I can honestly tell you that at the time, ever since the Carmelo deal with the Knicks, man, I've been very, very hesitant on trades that involve emptying the cupboard in order to be able to bring in one new dish. You know what I'm saying? Um, are you going to ask me now, hindsight, looking back on it, whether or not I would like to have Donovan Mitchell? I would. You know what I'm saying? He went to Cleveland and just balled the hell out this year. I mean, they're the 4 seed. I like the dynamic that the Knicks have. I hope that Julius comes back and that he's healthy. Hopefully, with the rest that he's actually received, he'll come back and he'll be fine. Brunson, I've said it before. I was not a fan of the contract itself when they first initially signed him, but he's balled out, man. He's earned every daggone penny that he had. But with me and the way that I like the Knicks and everything along those lines, you mean to tell me that Brunson and Donovan Mitchell and Julius Randle combo wouldn't have been nice to watch? It would have. But the pieces that you would have had to give up in order to be able to get Mitchell, you're talking about, getting rid of RJ quickly, Grimes, you know what I'm saying? And some of these picks that you have, one of which is currently under investigation because of what the Mavs did. But that's a conversation for a completely and totally different pod. So, in the other play-in game, you actually had in the West for the 7-8 game, you actually had the Lakers playing against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I got to be honest with you, man, coming into the game itself with everything that happened with Rudy Gobert, it kind of took away a little bit of the luster for me, especially finding out that they were going to suspend him leading up to the game itself. Um, but the T-Wolves wound up losing to the Lakers 108-102, which means that they now have to play OKC. We'll talk about that game in just a minute. But the Lakers had to go to overtime in order to be able to beat the T-Wolves on a night when the T-Wolves were missing 2 starters and Anthony Edwards played like ass. Um, LeBron and Anthony Davis did what LeBron and Anthony Davis are supposed to do in the playoffs. They went for LeBron had 30, 10, and 6 assists, and Davis went for 24 and 15. Schroeder actually played really, really well for them. Coming off the bench, he dropped 21 for them. Um, I don't understand how they were that amped up over winning that game considering the circumstances. Yes, you're in the playoffs. I get it. At the beginning of the year, they were, and I was on this pod and said that I did not foresee them making the playoffs back when the trade deadline hit. But the acquisitions that they actually made, the players that they've actually picked up, and what they've been doing since they've gotten to the Lakers, getting a healthy LeBron back just in time for the playoffs, and Anthony Davis playing out of his freaking mind to end the season. That kind of stuff, man, like you want to see Anthony Davis do well. You want to see LeBron come back healthy. The NBA right now is better when LeBron's in it. So that kind of stuff, man, for me, like Anthony Davis played at an MVP type level the last quarter of the season, and help propel them into a situation where they were going in to the 7-8 play-in game. They are going to be a force to be reckoned with. So they actually get the Grizzlies in the first round itself. That's the matchup that everybody wants to see. You got a young player on the up and coming that is Ja Morant. You got the OG that is LeBron. Morant wants everything LeBron has. LeBron is on the tail end of his career, but who knows, man? The dude could wind up playing until he's 50. The way that he's taking care of himself and the way that his game has adjusted to age is something like we haven't seen before. That is a matchup that I am very, very intrigued to see because of the dynamic of the way that the Grizzlies wind up playing and what you have in LeBron and AD and the Lakers and them going for that championship outside of the bubble. Because I think that while everybody knows that they won that bubble, you know what I'm saying, championship, I think the thing that you're actually looking at is that considered an asterisk? You know what I'm saying? LeBron wants to go ahead and wipe that clean. So I'm really interested to see how that one actually plays out. The T Wolves wound up having 5 guys in double figures. Towns led the way with 24 and 11. Connolly went for 23, but Kyle Anderson actually went for 12 with 13 assists. He played really, really well. Edwards, though, was one of these things where, as a Knicks fan, if RJ Barrett has the type of game that Anthony Edwards has the other day, the Twitterverse is basically saying get him out of town and this and that and so on and so forth. He went 9 for 17, but he went 0 for 9 from 3-point, man. He had 8 boards. You can't, that's not a superstar worthy of, I mean, I don't think I have to say this, but you can't be considered a superstar and have that type of performance in a game that is considered a playoff game. This is where the younger guys have to really kind of step up their game and really sort of work that angle, if you would, of I'm next and taking that mentality into the playoffs and maximizing the national TV exposure. Everybody talking about you. Half of the teams are no longer playing. You're still one of the teams that's in it. Like that kind of stuff, man. You just have to understand that during the playoffs, the non crazy fan like myself is tuning in to watch because it's playoffs. So when you have that type of opportunity, when you have that type of glitz, if you would, the glamour, all eyes on me type thing, you can't go out there and throw up a dud and go 0 for 9 from 3-point range. That's just not going to cut it. So the T Wolves will actually wind up playing OKC. We'll talk about the OKC game in just a second. For the Eastern Conference, the 9-10 game was the Bulls and the Raptors. The Bulls wound up pulling that one out 109-105. Watching the game, man, I'm not going to lie to you, I sort of switched it off. The Raptors were just running away with it. Pascal Siakam, you couldn't do anything with him. You know what I'm saying? It was one of those things where I turned it off for a few minutes, man, and then I get a notification on my phone that the game was close, and I turned it back on. I was like, what the hell did I miss? And what I missed was Zach LaVine going the hell off in the third quarter. So he wound up finishing with 39 and 6 boards. DeRozan went for 23 and 7. Vucevic had 14 and 13 boards. That kind of production from your quote unquote big three, that's what you need in the playoffs. You need guys that are going to step up and make plays. And the people that you're supposed to lean on are supposed to be the ones that guide you through this type of thing. And Zach LaVine, like I said, first half wasn't really that good. Siakam went nuts in the first half, and he just came out and he was just like, here I am. This is what we're going to do. So the Bulls wind up getting a chance to play the Heat on Friday night. So the winner of that Bulls Heat game is going to wind up taking on the Bucks. Sorry, man. I appreciate you coming out. I want to thank y'all for joining us, but it's time for you to go ahead and pack your bags and go home, man. The Bucks are one of those teams this year where they are championship or bust. There's a few teams in the playoffs that are pretty much like that. The Heat and the Bulls. The Heat, if they play like they played the other night, this game will be over before halftime. They got to come out with a little bit more energy against the Bulls. The Bulls are hot, coming in after playing the Raptors and taking down the Raptors in a game that they were not favored in. The matchups in the East right now are going to be the Bucks versus the winner of the Heat Bulls game. You have the Celtics playing against the Hawks. Again, the 76ers and the Nets, and then the Cavs and the Knicks. Out in the West, the Nuggets will play the winner of the T-Wolves and OKC game again. The Grizz will play the Lakers. They won the play-in game for the 7-8. The Kings and the Warriors is probably the matchup that I'm looking forward to the most, just because I've been really, really excited watching the Kings play this year, man. De'Aaron Fox is just having one of those types of years where unfortunately, I don't think that he's going to wind up, getting any sort of like MVP votes or anything along those lines. But um, the dude's just balled out this year, man. You know what I'm saying? So, and then the last game, or excuse me, the last series is going to be the Suns and the Clippers. Kevin Durant plays, they're undefeated. The Clippers, since they got Russell Westbrook, they've been a problem. So that one, it wouldn't surprise me if it went 7. I think the Suns and the Clippers, like I said, both of those teams, very, very veteran heavy squads. But that matchup is going to be one of those ones where, you know, you probably going to see some chippiness. You're probably going to see a little bit. I think the Suns wind up coming out of that one ultimately. I think it's just a little bit too much firepower. Um, but yeah, I think that's probably those are the two that I actually want to see. So I mean, we've got some good matchups coming. Like I said, that Grizz Lakers, Kings Warriors, and Suns Clippers, man, that's tough. That's tough. That's good basketball. That's good basketball. Cavs Knicks out in the East. I think that's probably going to be the best. I think the other 3 series between the Bucks and then the winner of that Heat Bulls game, the Celtics and the Hawks, and then the Sixers and Brooklyn. Um, I think that, your top 3 seeds in the East are probably the top 3 teams, arguably, in the league itself. So now moving into the other 2 play-in games. We were talking about the Bulls and the Raptors. And what you wound up having was the Raptors played in the first half the way that the Bulls played in the second half. The Raptors were hot. They were up. Like I said, they were up 19 in the game. I turned the game off. Because I was just like, I'm not going to sit here and watch a blowout. This is going to be ridiculous. And then again, I got a notification on my phone saying that it was a close game. And I turned it on in the third quarter. And all of a sudden, it was a 2-point ball game. I was like, what the hell happened? So Siakam, like I said, he had a great first half. He winds up going for 32 and 9. Van Vliet went for 26, 8 assists, and 12 boards. And then Scotty Barnes went for 19 and 10. So the Raptors, their season is over with. They are done. That was their opportunity to move on. And the Bulls took advantage of that. In the other game out west, the team that was not supposed to be here. I think in the preseason, I think everybody said that they were only going to win 23 games or something along those lines. They were going to be in the hunt for, Victor and all that other kind of stuff. And they just came in this year, man. And a lot of the pieces that Sam Presti's actually went out and picked up for OKC in the last few years, them dudes showed out, man. Like for real. And they're a young squad that doesn't they're not afraid of anybody. You know what I'm saying? They remind me of the Grizzlies from a few years ago, when the Grizzlies really came on the scene, as far as, making the playoffs and everything like that. They are solid. That backcourt of Shea and Giddy, man, like that's just if they keep those 2 dudes together, man, and I promise you, I think Giddy got 3 inches taller from the first quarter and than he was in the fourth, man. Like that dude just he's tall, he's long, he's lanky, he sees the court unbelievably well. But OKC wound up beating the Pelicans the other night, 123 to 118. Shea went for 32. Giddy, he went for 31, 10 assists and 9 boards. And Lou Dort chipped in with 27. Dude was hitting 3-point shots left and right. Um, Watching them play, I'm very excited about 2 teams out west. I love watching Sacramento play. I love watching OKC play. The way that those 2 teams get up and down the court. I'll say it right now. If you actually just put statistics up on a screen, and if you actually put one guy against the other and you took the names off the board, there's no way that you're not going to tell me that Shea is not an all NBA player this year. Not buying it. You're not going to sit here and tell me De'Aaron Fox is not an all NBA player this year. Not buying it. So I'm curious to kind of see how the voting for all of that winds up going, because I wonder how many names are actually put up there, and I wonder how many players that actually deserve to be up there are up there. Um, the Pelicans, man, they were led by Brandon Ingram. He went for 30, had 7 assists and 6 boards. Um, Murphy went for 21, and Valanciunas went for 16 and 18. But the thing that kind of came up after the game itself that I thought was kind of interesting was the veteran CJ McCollum actually came out and said that, during the playoffs, it's basically all hands on deck, man. Like you have to, and I'm going to read this to make sure that I don't misquote anybody. But he said, quote, availability is important, man. You've got to be available. We've got to do what we need to do off the court in terms of preparation, in terms of getting treatment, in terms of getting the right sleep, the right type of hydration, having the right type of diet. And a lot of people are thinking that that comment was directed at Zion Williamson. Zion was actually cleared to play by the Pelicans medical staff, and he actually elected not to play in the playoffs. Um, he had met with reporters, I want to say Monday or Tuesday of this week. And in that meeting, he actually said, and I quote, it's just a matter of the level that I was playing at before my hamstring injury. I'm just a competitor. I don't want to go out there and be in my own head and affect the team when I can just be on the sidelines supporting them more. I know myself, if I was to go out there, I would be in my head a lot. I would hesitate on certain moves, and that could affect the game. So essentially, he would have rather been a cheerleader in the play-in game for his team in a win or go home game. We're not talking about the 7-8 game. We're talking about the 9-10 game. The loser of that game, their season is over with. I can understand his hesitancy. I can. I fully understand that. I get that. I appreciate him not wanting to rush himself back based off of things that has happened to him in the past. You know what I'm saying? When Zion's on the court, he's must watch TV. The problem is when Zion's on the court. And if you felt that way in regards to being in your own head and things along those lines, then why were you out in pregame dunking, going through shoot around, stuff along those lines? That just, that kind of, I get it that you might be going through a rehab assignment or something like that, but that's not what you want to do, man. That's not what you want to do. And in a situation when you find out that CJ McCollum has to get surgery on his thumb and was actually playing the final 7 games of the season with a torn labrum in his shoulder, but you don't want to get into your own head coming out in a win or go home type game. So I don't know, man. Like I come from a different cloth, for lack of better terms. I come from a different generation. I come from a generation of basketball players that did not sit out. They played 82. They played every night. You could not drag them off the court. And in load management and things along those lines that happens in the league today, what are you going to do, man? I mean, it is what it is. You got to kind of accept it. But when you're in a win or go home type game, you have to be out there on the court. If you have been cleared to play medically, then really there's no excuse for you not to be on the court, in my opinion. You know your own body, though. I will say that, but you can't be out there before the game throwing down dunks and stuff like that if you're worried about your hamstring. You can run. I got no problem with you running. You want to go out and you want to jump on a bike and you want to sit off on the side and pedal away. You want to get up and you want to run some ladders or something along those lines just to see how it's feeling and stuff like that. Maybe try and loosen it up a little bit. Yeah, I'm good with that. But for you to go out there and say what you said and then your team winds up losing, um, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I want to see Zion on the court. I do. I want to see him healthy. Haven't seen him healthy at all since his rookie year. He's been injured every single season. So, in my opinion, the jury's still out on him, man. Like, because I need to see him be able to do it. But Pelicans are going home. So he gets an extended vacation. And I really do wonder if they would have won the game the other night, whether or not he would have played in the next game um, against the T Wolves to see who winds up going and playing the Nuggets. Because when he was on the court this year, the Pelicans were tough. They were hard to beat. They were a good squad, top to bottom, the bench, everything. They were a good team. And with him not playing in a game when, like I said, it's the 9-10 game is win or go home. It's win or go home. You can't go out there and do something like that, man. Not when your team needs you. So that's going to do it, man. That is my coverage, if you would, for the play-in games that actually occur. Like I said, there's still 2 games that are left to be played to be able to kind of see where everything shakes out for the first round of the playoffs itself. So you have the Bulls and Heat coming up, as well as OKC and the T-Wolves. Kind of curious to see that OKC T-Wolves game to see how Edwards bounces back and to see whether or not Shea and Giddy can actually stay hot on the court together. In regards to the Heat and the Bulls, I'm curious to see which teams show up. Is it going to be the Bulls team that showed up in the first half of the game, was getting mollywopped by the Raptors, then came back in the second half? Or is it going to be the team that came out in the second half, you know what I'm saying, and played that way? And then for the Heat, man, I just need more effort out of them. Like, I understand the Heat culture and things along those lines, but y'all got to do better than that, man. Like Bam, I don't mean no harm. I know that Jimmy is the guy, but Bam is the one that kind of makes the engine go. You got to get him active. You got to get him involved. You got to get him involved early. So if you want predictions, I will tell you, I think that OKC winds up beating Minnesota to go on and face the Nuggets in the first round. And just based off of the way that they finished that game the other night, man, I got to go with the Bulls over the Heat. Um, would it surprise me if either one of those games flipped and the Heat beat the Bulls and the T Wolves beat OKC? Nah, I really wouldn't. But just based off of my gut feeling for what I saw the other night, I think that if you look at the way that they played, I think the Bulls wound up coming out on top of the Heat. And I really do think that OKC is going to kind of ride this wave and then get that playoff experience, man, against a team that is hunting, if you would, for that NBA championship. So I want to thank you guys for joining me. That is another episode for the Homie Trinity podcast. Like and subscribe to the channel. Hit all of the alerts, man, so that you know when we put out new material. And as always, like us on social media. Follow us on social media. We got some big things planned for you guys over the course of the next few months. So you don't want to miss out. You want to make sure that you were there and you can tell everybody that I've been there since the beginning. So on that note, peace.